Did you feel protective of Aaliyah at the time? Do you feel protective of Aaliyah now?
I feel protective of Aaliyah right now.
That's more modern day super feminist woman witchcraft. I feel so protective of her. How could you feel protective of someone who is long gone? There's no need for you to protect her now. When you should have been protective, you were not. This is a way to, once again, subconsciously and subliminally push the image of the woman as the victim, the woman as the protector of everything, to make sure that the image of the man, the masculine principle, is demonized. Believe me, this person, Javante Cunningham, was doing her dirt as well. I have no doubt about that.
Which is why I can't get my mouth to say. He destroyed a lot of people. Destroyed a lot of people.
He probably did. And the reason why you're so upset is because he did it on your watch. You could have did something about it and you chose not to.
A lot of people who loved and adored him. And I can't stress to you enough how people are still suffering behind things that went on 20 years ago.
Let me say this. If people are suffering, I blame their parents more than I blame R.Kelly. If when she says people are suffering, she's talking about young girls. It's the job of the parents to make sure that they know where their daughters are. It's a job of the daughter to respect their parents' wishes. The real elephant in the room is that I believe that some of these parents would not have minded their daughters sleeping with R. Kelly. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure that there are many parents who send their daughters to try to seduce R. Kelly, hoping that they can fall into some type of settlement. Don't put that napkin on your face too much. All that damn makeup come off. You might reveal a 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock shadow.
After that, it kind of started the breakup of everything and everybody.
Brothers, notice how much they show the photo of R. Kelly and Aaliyah in their Disney outfit.
A lot of people's emotions were challenged. Our whole family just kind of ripped up.
Robert.
Once again, no disrespect to Aaliyah, but when I look at the young photos of her and I look at that jaw structure, it looks like a young boy to me. I'm not saying that that's what she was. I'm just saying that's how it looks. And yet again, out of all the photos that they've shown of Aaliyah in this docuseries, I would say probably 70% of the photos that they show is of the Mickey Mouse attire or the Disney clothing that she wore. Why is that? Because once again, Disney programming is a major component in the MK Ultra mind control program. Both Disneyland and Disney World are locations where they take many children, sometimes kidnapped from their parents, and place them under the programming. Of course, what I'm saying is alleged, but you brothers should look a lot of that information up for yourselves. Walt Disney was a Luciferian.
Robert came to me. We were in Miami. Robert said, man, we got Aaliyah in trouble. And Aaliyah in trouble? What do you mean? Man, we got to get to Chicago. Robert mentioned to me that I think she's pregnant. And that broke my heart right there. I was so disappointed in him because I really believed him when he said that, you know, he wasn't doing any messing with Aaliyah, because I questioned him. And once he told me that, I was like, I was lost for words.
Right, but brother, what did you really expect? I mean, once again, no man in his right mind, if you care about your daughter, is going to place her under the control of another grown man, especially when your daughter's 14, 15 years old and her sexuality is just starting to burgeon. That's when you have to protect it the most. And once again, if R. Kelly did believe that Aaliyah may have been pregnant, did he pursue an abortion?
He married Aaliyah. I was in the room when they got married.
In 1994, I was working at MTV News as a writer, not on air, and the issue of is he married to Aaliyah was wild and being talked about widely. Finally, my boss told me, call the Cook County Clerk's office and tell them to send you the marriage certificate.
No, he said, call the Cook County Clerk's office, Negro. Do your job. Your job is to follow around these Negroes in the industry. Do your damn job.
Hip-hop star R.Kelly did indeed marry his protege, the 15-year-old singer Aaliyah Houghton.
What the hell ever happened to this dude, Kurt Loder? Remember him? What the hell is he doing now?
MTV News was the first to put out this marriage certificate on which Aaliyah had said that she was 18 when she was actually 15, and R. Kelly.
That's how you know, number one, R. Kelly knew that what he was doing wasn't correct, as did Aaliyah, because they lied about her age. But beyond that, they also had to know that this marriage was not going to last long, and they did what they did to fulfill a ritual, because it was only going to be but so long until people found out what was going on. So they had to know that the marriage was not going to last long. That's how you know it had to have been a ritual.
R. Kelly was 27 and they were married.
And look at the ages as well. R. Kelly 27, Aaliyah 18. 27, as many of you brothers out there know, is the age in which many of the sacrifices occur for many of the music stars in the entertainment industry.
I'm not proud of that. I had papers forged for them.
You're not proud of it, brother? That seems like a very intricate thing to have done for you to not be proud of it. I think you're just not happy that you're the one who had to sit down for this docuseries now.
But Aaliyah was underage. Got the marriage license, and we were in a hotel in Maywood, Illinois. It was just a quick little ceremony, nothing elaborate. She didn't have on a white dress. Robert didn't have on a tux. Just everyday wear. And Robert said, I do. He said, I do, him and Aaliyah. Aaliyah looked worried, scared.
Right, but why would Aaliyah look worried and scared if supposedly she was so madly in love with R. Kelly? Maybe she looked worried and scared because this was something that she was forced to do and not something that she actually wanted to do.
Worried and scared.
And you know what's interesting, brothers? I read an article where Dame Dash, who of course was Aaliyah's alleged boyfriend at the time of her demise, where Dame Dash claimed that he asked Aaliyah about the situation with R. Kelly, and she told him that she did not want to talk about it. Now, of course, it could be because she signed a non-disclosure agreement, but it also could just be because she was never in love with R. Kelly, and she was just prompted to create this connection with him to get to the next stage of her career. She was an opportunist, just like her parents were, just like R. Kelly was. Everybody wanted something out of this deal, out of this arrangement. She wanted to be a star. She needed him. He wanted her, at least for the moment.
I wanted so much to grab Aaliyah and talk to her. I wanted so much to talk to her. Because she looked at me. She gave me a look like she wanted me to talk to her. That's where I felt like I left her. I failed them, both of them.
There wasn't much that she was going to get done there, brother. At the end of the day, you had to play your part. They had to play their parts. Everybody in the industry, for the most part, I mean, unless you're talking about the record executives and the big wigs, they're all pawns, man. People believe that these so-called music stars can do what they want and go where they want. They're under constant surveillance because they're assets, and they can be removed off the chessboard whenever the chess masters want them to be removed. That's just how it goes.
I knew that it had changed the course of everything.
Just very interesting, this entire Aaliyah and R. Kelly situation. This photo here does not look like someone who's happy to be in the situation that she's in.
I was not familiar with how the annulment happened with Aaliyah. I just know that it did.
Isn't it interesting? Within 2 months, the marriage was annulled. Once again, the marriage was never based in love. Aaliyah was never in love with him, despite what the overall narrative was, that the young girl fell in love with the older man. It was very obvious, at least to me, what the arrangement was. I think that it's kind of obvious to a lot of people, even though they might not understand it from the pagan mysticism angle, which always pervades the record industry. It's just that a lot of people are not familiar with those aspects at all. But yes, once again, in my view anyway, R.Kelly is proverbial Orpheus, and Aaliyah was proverbial Eurydice, aka Persephone. If you understand the mystery school aspect of Persephone, who was also the goddess of the grain, being the daughter of her mother Demeter, or the mother, or Siri, the mother goddess. She was kidnapped by Hades and taken to be the queen of the underworld. That is why she became known as the Queen of the Damned. And as we know, Aaliyah went on to play that role, which may have been her most famous role in films, that being the Queen of the Damned, where she played the vampire. And as I may have mentioned in other videos, the concept of the vampire or the werewolf is not literal. It's allegorical. It's meant to denote someone or an entity who has an understanding of the Bacchanalian mystery school system or the Bacchanalian rituals. When you venerate the Bacchus, you must drink blood. You must be a cannibal. A lot of people don't understand that. They think that the Bacchus is just a god of revelry and wine. No, you must also be a cannibal as well. His followers, the Maenads, who were the antecedents to the groupies of today, or the entourage of today. The Maenads would literally tear apart a bull, tear it apart, the horns, the body, and everything, and then eat the flesh raw, because the bull was the representative of the Bacchus himself.
Our parents had the last say so.
It says R.Kelly paid Aaliyah $100 for her agreement not to pursue legal action. For R.Kelly to only have to pay Aaliyah $100, what that basically means is that she was willing to leave their arrangement for free, and he made her sign a contract just to make sure, and also just gave her $100. That means she did not want anything. She was just done, ready to move on to the next phase, because she had completed that ritual. So now she could become a star or a celebrity in her own right and link up with that the lesbian mother goddess, aka Missy Elliott, along with Timbaland.
The Aaliyah situation, a lot of it.
Once again, they repeat this image of R. Kelly and Aaliyah with the Mickey Mouse outfits on. They were under Disney programming. R. Kelly is still under programming to this day. He is an asset, as well as a handler, as well as a programmer. How do I know he's a programmer? Many of the techniques that he uses to bring these females under his subjection. When they say that these women are under mind control and that they're a member of his sex cult, why are they saying that? Because they know that he's a programmer.
A lot of us kind of forgave, but we're kind of like, that was weird, but okay, what else you got? Well, they're both performers, and she's old beyond her years, and they just have that special connection. It didn't yet appear like, here's a person who is a predator.
Where was the outrage? Where was Essence? Where was Ebony? Where was the local news? Where was anyone? Like, why would...
Where was Ebony? Where was Essence? Well, most of the females who were writing for Ebony or Essence at the time were probably trying to have sex with R. Kelly their damn self. So they were not outraged. They were probably jealous that it was Aaliyah in his bed and not them. And I believe that you're jealous that Aaliyah was in his bed and not you.
Like, why was this not in that moment? Full stop. Why didn't the culture...
Because his music was so good, that's why.
The culture say something is wrong.
You had this whole history of adult male musicians who hung out with young girls. Musicians who mentored young girls. You had the history of musicians who married young girl fans.
Now, brothers, isn't it interesting that of all the people who chose to drop this truth bomb about the history of rock and roll stars and music stars dealing with teenage girls, of all the people who chose to drop that truth bomb, it had to be the frumpy looking Caucasian female here, who looks kind of like a damn tranny her damn self. I don't think that she is. I just think that she's been cursed with very poor looks. But at the end of the day, I just find it strange that, well, I shouldn't even say I find it strange. It's pretty predictable that it would be the Caucasian woman who would put things in that perspective, because she knows the history of the music industry. That being that people like Elvis Presley and Jerry Lee Lewis and many other prominent rock and roll stars and stars in the music world, the acting world, the athletic world in general, they take on all comers. They might have their preferences, but they lay down with young girls, older girls, tall girls, short girls. It's just what they do.
And I think while it was disturbing to people, it's very easy to rationalize things when you're in the industry and you see this flourishing career, not only of Kelly, but of Aaliyah.
If you listen to the history of American popular music, particularly rock and roll, there's a whole thing about underage girls. That's a big running theme in so much of the songs.
Absolutely. Because the underage girls tend to be the ones who, number one, are not married. Number two, are trying to experiment sexually.
Songs. Sweet Little 16.
Chuck Berry. One of the forerunners for what we call rock and roll today. Chuck Berry, not to digress, also was someone who stated that he was an aboriginal of North America. He traced his lineage back to the aboriginal components of North America. He also was a person who was the R.Kelly of his day. He liked to video record all of his sexual escapades, and he was bugged out, man. Like, he liked to defecate in women's mouths and fart in their mouths and all that other stuff, man. I mean, not to digress, but he was way out there, Chuck Berry.
There's a body of work of underage girls being sexual targets, being sexually promiscuous, being celebrated.
It's hard to think of a group or an artist who didn't pay tribute to teenage girls in a way that we might question today. Even the Beatles, you know, when I saw her standing there, she was just 17, if you know what I mean.
The Beatles were huge Luciferians. That could be a whole long video. The Beatles were a group who were formed by the Tavistock Institute, which was a think tank in Britain, or in England per se. They were formed by the MI6. Their job was to propagate Luciferianism in rock and roll at the time. And of course, the name Beatle, or the Beatles, was an allusion to the scarab beetle, which was a creature that was always a totemic animal associated with sun worship. The scarab beetle would push its dung, and the people of Kemet likened it to the force that pushed the sun across the sky. I believe the morning sun, who they called Kepri. So that's why the scarab beetle became a totemic animal associated with Kemet, and that's why the Beatles took that name. R.Kelly himself also understands the image of the beetle that is the force behind the moving sun.
Jerry Lee Lewis famously married his 13-year-old cousin, Myra.
Jerry Lee Lewis, for those of you who don't know, big time MK Ultra programmer, known for being a sadist. I probably mentioned this in videos in the past. As a matter of fact, you could check out a biographical film about Jerry Lee Lewis that they did maybe 30 years ago, starring Dennis Quaid, called Great Balls of Fire, in which they show you in the film that Jerry Lee Lewis was a Satanist, and I believe he's still alive today, and he's scared of dying to this day because he knows what he's done in his life. But big time Satanist, big time MK Ultra programmer, associated with the Temple of Set, which was a satanic organization or a satanic coven of MK Ultra programmers who formerly were based in the military. Michael Aquino, who himself was associated with Sammy Davis Jr., and also Anton LaVey, who was Marilyn Monroe's first MK Ultra programmer. Marilyn Monroe, for those of you who don't know, was a molestation victim as a child and was a stripper at the time that Anton LaVey found her. Anton LaVey also programmed Jane Mansfield. So, I mean, the rabbit hole is deep with this stuff. But Jerry Lee Lewis, just to get back to the point, and if I remember correctly, one of you brothers can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that Jerry Lee Lewis also had connections with Drake's father, Dennis Graham. I believe that he was the drummer for Jerry Lee Lewis, but once again, you brothers can check that out. But just to revisit the point, Jerry Lee Lewis, very sadistic MK Ultra programmer, who, of course, as we can see, was into incest as well. And Dennis Graham, in my view, is very little doubt that he raised up Drake in the programming to a certain degree. The name Drake, for those of you who don't know, means dragon or serpent. That's why he just goes by his first name, because he was already preordained to take over the industry. Now, there are certain big wigs in the music world who they allow to handle their top assets because of their loyalty. So it's not difficult to grasp why people like P. Diddy or Baby from Cash Money are allowed to use these assets, because they show great obeisance to the real authorities in these record industry covens, the Clive Davises, etc. So the more obeisance you show, the more you're allowed to, take advantage of and make money off of these musical assets that they're creating in the Monarch program. I mean, Baby has a damn inverted pentagram tattooed on the top of his head. So we already know what time it is with him. And Lil Wayne makes it be known what he's about.
And they flaunted their relationship. That actually brought down his career. Elvis Presley was more subtle and careful with his teenage girlfriend.
Elvis Presley. I mentioned this already. Elvis Presley was a very valuable asset. He was the forerunner for a lot of what they perfected when it comes to promotion with Michael Jackson. That's why they both have that term king. So Elvis Presley, they called the king of rock and roll. Michael Jackson, they called the king of pop. Elvis Presley's handler was someone by the name of Colonel Tom Parker. And Tom Parker was not his real name. He was actually a Dutchman. He was introduced to Elvis. When I say he, I'm talking about Colonel Tom Parker, by a grand dame, a woman who they called the Grand Dame of Nashville. But her name is skipping my mind right now. One of you brothers could look it up. I believe that her name was May Axton, or May Bourne Axton, or May Axton Bourne. One of those names. But you brothers, once again, can look it up. She was a very high-level Luciferian. That's why her name was Grand Dame. The term Grand Dame is used for women who have many monarch slaves, and they act as high-level programmers. Like Hillary Clinton, she was known as a Grand Dame. Michelle Obama as well. Another one of Elvis Presley's handlers was Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra was a big-time programmer out there in Vegas. What they do is, once they get their musical assets to a certain level, they take them out there to Vegas, because it's easier to surveil them and monitor them out in Vegas. Frank Sinatra was one of the first artists to head out to Las Vegas to become an entertainer. They brought Elvis out there after they brought him back from the military, where he was put under heavier programming and linked up with Priscilla Presley, who also is an asset herself. If you guys remember, she played the lady in red in the film Naked Gun. She was the seductress in that film, which also was about mind control, if you remember correctly. They exposed Reggie Jackson as a monarch athlete in that film. So what they do a lot of times is they just mock the viewer in plain sight. And they did to Elvis Presley what they also did to Kanye. They killed his mother because he had a very close affinity with his mother. When you kill the mother, that causes enough trauma where it makes it much easier to program the asset, because they'll often become so upset and depressed that they'll become hooked on alcohol or drugs. And after that, when Elvis's mother was taken out of the picture, that's when he started to really indulge in drugs and alcohol, which led to him becoming extremely toxic, or his body becoming extremely toxified by the early to mid 70s. But he was linked up with this person here, Priscilla Presley. And also, remember, just to show you once again, Michael Jackson was meant to fill the role in the 80s that Elvis Presley filled in the 60s and 70s. So Michael Jackson filled that role in the 80s and 90s. And he had a very similar decline, Michael Jackson did, in the 90s that Elvis had in the 70s. And just like they linked up Elvis with Lisa Marie Presley, they linked up Michael Jackson with Priscilla Presley.
Friend Priscilla, whom he met when he was a soldier abroad in Germany, and whom he brought to live with him as a young teenager. So when you think of girls who are going to shows, attending concerts, becoming completely hysterical, and then meeting their heroes, I mean, this is a situation ripe for men taking advantage of young girls.
Here they go with more of that men-shaming nonsense. Once again, the concept of the female fan originated with the Bacchus and his Maenads. On the wall, within the Playboy penthouse, Hugh Hefner had an image or a tapestry of himself as the Bacchus, and the Playboy playmates or the bunnies as the Maenads. They were women who would get into such a fervor over their worship of the Bacchus that once again they would tear apart animals, they could uproot trees, and they always wore the leopard print, which to this day is associated with being a sex kitten or their sex altar. That started from the ancient world with the Bacchus and his Maenads. Maenads spelled M as in Michael, A-E, and as in Nancy, A-D-S. You brothers should look that up for yourselves. Remember, once again, in Kemet, the priest of Asar wore the leopard print. So these are things that we have to be cognizant of, because there's no new thing under the sun. To this day, if an asset is placed under beta programming or sex kitten programming, they wear the leopard print, right?
Robert feels as if he's invincible. I can't be touched.
Well, that's why you've included yourself in this series, because you want to make sure that you're part of the element that takes him down, because you have a guilty conscience over what you assisted him with for many years throughout the 90s. That's really why you're upset, because you know your ass should be going to jail too.
And in hindsight, in society, we kind of made him feel that way, because he's progressively done this for as far back as I can remember, and nothing has been done about it.
Yeah, nothing has been done about it, and you can remember it for as far back as you can remember, because you let the shit slide. You ignored it because you hoped that you were going to be Sparkle or one of his other proteges who would be allowed to eventually become a star. You never became a star. You're 40 plus years old. Now you want your revenge. Normal Me Too bullshit. But hey, brothers, it is what it is. That's going to be the end of this video on Robert Kelly and Aaliyah, aka Orpheus and Eurydice. So peace. Okay, so now, brothers, this is going to be the epilogue to the R. Kelly and Aaliyah Match Made in Hell Part 2 video. And this video is going to focus on many of her movements during the latter part of her career as a highlighted or featured artist. And we're going to start with some of her quote-unquote so-called romantic connections or her alleged boyfriends, because, brothers, we have to understand something. We have to get our minds away from this understanding that the people in the entertainment industry are engaging in quote-unquote conventional relationships, because they're not. They're just not. They fuck who they need to fuck at that moment to get where they need to go. If they have to get in bed with a certain producer to get tracks, they're going to do that. If they have to get in bed with another artist, either male or female, to get a feature, they're going to do that. The people that you see on TV who are claiming to be boyfriend and girlfriend, they might be together for the moment, but when they're away from one another, they're both doing their thing. And Aaliyah was no different. No disrespect, she was no different. Number one, she was sexually fluid. She was a pansexual, allegedly, just like everyone else in the industry of prominence. All of them go both ways, or all ways, as they climb up higher and higher on the totem pole. Do you really think that her and Dame Dash had this so-called serious relationship and they're taking photos like this? In all seriousness, this photo looks like they're about to head to the telly right after whatever their function is at is over. Or hell, they might have headed there right after this photo was taken, because all three of them look like they're ready to have some fun. So the whole Dame Dash Aaliyah thing I never bought, and I'm pretty sure that had Aaliyah and Dame Dash gotten quote-unquote married, that they would have came up with some story for why she could not have kids, because I'm telling you, no disrespect. Just looking at her body type, the prominent chin that she had when she was an adolescent, I don't believe that she was born a female. That's just me. Could I be wrong about that? Sure I could, but I doubt it. I seriously doubt it. Now, brothers, this right here is a photo of Aaliyah, her mother, Diana Houghton, and Dame Dash again. Aaliyah's been cut off from the photo, but she is in the photo on the left-hand side. I have to wonder, with the way in which Diana Houghton has her hand on Dame Dash's face, if the arrangement here was the same as it was with R.Kelly. Because according to Lisa Van Allen, Aaliyah's mother was having sex with R.Kelly as much as Aaliyah was. That's according to Lisa Van Allen, not to me. It's according to her. Once again, brothers have to understand how that industry works. Everyone is sexually fluid. They all get down with each other. Now here's Aaliyah with Nasty Nas. And you know, Nas is one of them dudes who knock down every chick in the industry, but you never know about it. Because he does not put too much of what he does out there in the street. But he's knocked down just about every last one of these broads. And let me say this, certain people might be watching this video and think that I'm quote-unquote judging Aaliyah. No, I'm not quote-unquote judging Aaliyah. I'm just trying to establish the truthful aspect of her participation in the entertainment industry. She was just like everybody else. She was jumping from rod to rod to rod, man to man to man. She was a maenad. And all of these little R&B chicks, as I've stated, they're known for getting around. None of them are chaste. They can't be and be allowed to be featured on certain songs, so on and so forth. Remember, Aaliyah was on the One More Chance remix. So who knows how she got that gig. This is Aaliyah with Hove, and supposedly this is one of the main contributors to the fallout between Jay-Z and Dame Dash. Supposedly it was her. I think that this may have been a component of that or a part of that, but I don't think that that was the main component. I think that Jay-Z was ready to be without Dame Dash. I think that he realized that in order for him to get to the highest levels of the industry, he had to make sure that he had a Jewish overlord and not a black one. Because once you get to a certain level, it's not just about masonry, it's about the Kabbalah. The Caucasian Jews show you a higher level of understanding of Luciferianism, much higher than can be shown in many of these regular fraternal or Masonic organizations, because the Caucasian Jew just has a far closer relationship to Lucifer and Luciferianism. That's why you'll see all the top directors and producers and screenwriters in Hollywood, for the most part, are Jewish. Most of the comic book writers, especially from back in the 30s and 40s and 50s, are Jewish, because they have a far higher understanding of the pagan mythologies. They just always have. And in order for you to ascend to the level that you want to get to, the zenith of where you're trying to go, you must have a Kabbalistic Jewish overlord. You just do. Jay-Z understood that. LeBron James understands that. So do I think that Aaliyah was part of the fallout between Jay-Z and Dame Dash? Sure. But she was not the major reason for the fallout. Dame Dash was too busy trying to go back and forth with Leo Cohen to understand what it was that Jay-Z wanted. Jay-Z was like Scarface. He wants the world and everything in it. So he's willing to do anything to get to the next level. And right now, Jay-Z is the top witch on the male side in the music industry. So as many of you brothers know, this is a still shot from the Aaliyah video, We Need a Resolution. And this was a pivotal video in her career because, as I've already stated, I believe that this video was meant to be a hallmark that signified a change from the light aspect of Aaliyah to the dark aspect of Aaliyah. Unfortunately for her, she never got to go down that dark path or that dark road for the sake of exposure to the public, because they decided to take her off of the grand stage. For whatever reason, that's what they decided. But this video was meant to be a hallmark or a signifier for a career turn for Aaliyah. As we can see here, Aaliyah is showing her partnership with the Serpent. She is a priestess of the Serpent. She's what's known in the ancient world as a Pythia. Spelled P as in Peter, Y as in yellow, T as in Thomas, H as in Harry, I as in India, A as in apple. What a Pythia was basically a servant of Apollo, a diviner, what they call an oracle. And she would divine with a serpent wrapped around her, because the serpent is a symbol of wisdom. It's also a symbol of divining, or being able to tell the future. Okay, so that's why you see that image of the serpent being used throughout quote-unquote mythology or the pagan mystery school system. Remember that Zeus turned into a serpent in order to make love with the woman, I think that it was Semele, I believe it was Semele, to create the Bacchus. So the phenomena of a quote-unquote divine entity being symbolized by a serpent or by a dragon per se is nothing new, either on the right-hand side or the left-hand side. In the case of Aaliyah, it's on the left-hand side because she was a witch. And as we can see here in this photo, she's looking directly at the serpent. Remember, another reason why the woman drapes herself with the snake is because she's saying that she's Eve. Eve was really the first priestess of the serpent. She was the first servant of the serpent. She was the first messenger of the serpent. She's the one who taught the teachings of the serpent to Adam, which necessitated both his fall and her fall. So when you see many of these females in the entertainment industry draping a serpent or snake around their shoulders, they're not copying one another. They're showing you that they worship the mother goddess in the form of Eve. When this video came out, subsequent to this, Britney Spears had an infamous performance on MTV. I believe it was the MTV Music Awards, and she came out with the serpent wrapped around her, and everybody said, oh, she's copying Aaliyah. No, she wasn't copying Aaliyah. They were both copying Eve. You understand? That's why you had the rapper who came out around that time by the name of Eve. What she was trying to convey once again is that she was a servant of the serpent. That's it. And I know that that's her real name of Eve. But the reason why they allowed her to keep that name as a stage name is because of the energy that they wanted her to push. Here's Britney Spears, another Monarch programmed asset, showing once again that she is a Pythia. She's a servant of Apollo. She's a diviner. Okay, she's an oracle. This concept is also touched on in the scriptures in Acts, the 16th chapter and the 16th verse, where they encounter the damsel with that divining demon on her. She also had a serpent wrapped around her shoulders. Okay, so once again, brothers, when you see these female celebrities who have the serpent wrapped around their shoulders in their performances, that's what they're trying to show you. This is another image of Aaliyah from the video We Need a Resolution, which is showing her as a priestess of the serpent. And I can do a whole video just around this concept. This is something that's very big, brothers. This is not just about Aaliyah or Britney Spears or what have you. This is a major, major conceptual energy that they push through the entertainment industry, especially pertaining to the woman and her association with the serpent. Okay? So once again, Aaliyah is showing you what she actually is. She was a witch. Now, brothers, this is another sentiment that Aaliyah tends to push in many of her photographs, that being the veneration of the vagina. Please understand that the vagina is viewed as being a divine portal between the physical world and the spiritual world. And oftentimes you'll see female artists throw off the delta, whether it be the upright triangle or the downward triangle for the mother goddess. Whether the triangle is upright or down is for the mother goddess. Upright is the delta or the doorway between the physical world and the spiritual world. When it's down, it's flipped downward, is for the vagina, which is also meant to convey a portal between the spiritual world and the physical world. So here we see Aaliyah forming the downward triangle right around her vagina, or where her vagina currently is, because once again, I don't believe that that's what she was born with. And it's no disrespect. I'm not trying to offend any of Aaliyah's fans or what have you. But most females are not built like this. Okay? Her body goes straight up and down. And when she was a child, she had a very prominent chin. But that's neither here nor there. As we can see, she's dressed in all black. I don't know how many times I have to say this, brothers. She venerated Pan. She is a witch. Or was one. Her shoulders are wider than her hips. Now, brothers, here's another photo of Aaliyah, once again dressed in all black, doing the downward triangle, or really more of a diamond sign over her vagina. Either way, it's meant to convey what? That she is a venerator of the mother goddess, that her vagina, or that the vagina period, should be worshipped, and that she's a venerator of Pan. She's dressed in all black. Now, brothers, one thing that I will say that I find very interesting about Aaliyah is that for the most part, when she shows one eye, it tends to be the right eye, especially when she was younger. Now, as we know, the right eye is the eye of Heru, the boy god. So in my view, the reason why she's showing the right eye is because she's trying to convey that she was born a boy. Most female celebrities who are under the programming, they just show the left eye, the eye of Hathor. Aaliyah is always showing the right eye. And as we can see from this photo, this is during her big chin phase. This is before she grew into her chin, or they had this surgical procedure to shear down her chin so that she looks less like a boy or like a man. But as we can see here, it's the right eye that's being exposed to show that she is a venerator of Heru, the boy god, or Harpocrates. Here's another photo of Aaliyah, once again just showing the right eye for Heru. Yet again, just the right eye for Heru. Now, brothers, here she's showing both eyes, but she does have her right index finger up against her mouth for Harpocrates, the god of silence, who is who? It is Heru. So Aaliyah is pretty much showing us what exactly her origins are, as well as the fact that she is heavily immersed in the world of magic and witchcraft. So now, brothers, this photo right here is meant to convey that Aaliyah is representing the goddess of the wild creatures, but particularly the serpent. As we can see, she's dressed in all black once again, and she has the serpent wrapped around her waist and another serpent climbing up her right leg. Both her hands are out, and she seems to be putting forth some type of spell. This is a concept that dates all the way back to the ancient world of the mother goddess who was dominant over two serpents to show that she ruled over wisdom and also over both her husband and her son. The understanding that she was the transcendent or the ultimate aspect of the quote-unquote Trinity. Brothers, this is an ancient statuette from Kemet, and as we can see, this mother goddess figure, I believe it's Hathor, holding both serpents. This is where they get that in the Pentecostal church, where they grab up the serpent. They try to claim that they get it from the scriptures, where it states that a serpent will bite you and is not going to be able to harm you. No. In the Pentecostal church, they get that practice of grabbing up snakes and poisonous serpents. They get that from the mother goddess. Okay? Same place where Aaliyah got it from, or where they get it from in the craft. Now, brothers, Missy Elliott and Timbaland, but particularly Missy Elliott, became one of Aaliyah's handlers after the R.Kelly ritual came to an end. And for those of you brothers who don't know, Missy Elliott is a very high-level witch in the music industry. She's an MK handler herself. And by her own testimony, she also was the victim of sexual or satanic ritual abuse as a child. What you'll find almost uniformly in the entertainment industry is that everyone of prominence was the victim of pedophilia when they were young. Why is that? Because, as I state incessantly, in order for the implementation of multiple personality disorder that is essential for the creation of an asset that is functional, you need the pedophile aspect, you need the pederasty aspect, or basically the molestation of the child, because that breaks up the child's consciousness into various components, into alters. Then you install the personality, then you install the trigger. That's how that works. But as we can see here, here's Aaliyah, here's Missy Elliott, and lo and behold, the sofa that they're sitting on is leopard print. So once again, the leopard print is used to promote the sex altar, or the sex goddess altar, or the sex slave altar. And for all intents and purposes, it's relatively common knowledge that Missy Elliott is the person who turned Aaliyah out into the quote-unquote bisexual aspect or the pansexual aspect. Here's another photo with the two of them. I guess they're on the same couch. So that couch that couch played a central figure during that time period for the both of them. And it's not very difficult to grasp. Most of the top female artists, especially during that time, were lesbians or pansexuals or bisexuals, just like they are today. They just did a much better job of hiding it back then. So, brothers, as we can see here, Aaliyah is letting you know what time it is. She's trying to help you understand that she is a part of the craft. See, back then, 20 years ago, we didn't know any of this stuff. We just looked at photos and pictures and we said, oh, okay, she must have a new album coming out, or he must have a new project coming out. And now we reflect back 25 years later with a far greater understanding. That's how we know that we're nearing the end. Because this is the time of knowledge, it's the time of information, it's the time of information sharing. Things that we had no idea about 20, 25 years ago, we're much more informed about now. Just look at this photo. Aaliyah is forming the so-called OK hand sign, or the quote-unquote mudra with her right hand, the alleged 666 hand sign. And with her left hand, she's throwing up the quote-unquote peace sign for Pan. I told you, brothers, that many of these photos, what they'll do is they'll act like they're fixing their baseball hat or their hats or their glasses or what have you, and they'll form that 666 OK sign with one of their hands or both of their hands. But once again, Aaliyah was not some saint. She was as dirty as all the rest. Now, as most of you brothers know, near the end of Aaliyah's life, the industry was trying to turn her into some type of movie star. She was in Romeo Must Die. She was also in this film right here, the quote-unquote Queen of the Damned. And as I've touched on in the R.Kelly and Aaliyah Match Made in Hell video and other videos about this topic, Aaliyah played the character of Persephone, not just in this film, but throughout her entire career. The story of Persephone is that she's the daughter of the mother goddess, and she was kidnapped by the god of hell so that she could become his consort, his wife per se. And that's how she took on the moniker of the Queen of the Damned. So in other words, she was the queen of hell. She was the queen over the demons there. And that's the character that Aaliyah played in this film. That's why I tell you, brothers, that the concept of the vampire is based on the concept of the Bacchanalian mysteries, or the Eleusinian mysteries. The Eleusinian mysteries are basically the mother goddess version of the Babylonian Kemetic mystery school system. And Aaliyah was playing Persephone. Once again, she played that character not just in this film, but throughout her entire life in the industry. It pretty much was scripted for her how things were going to go. As we can see here, she plays a vampire in the film. I believe that her name was Akasha. The term Akasha is, I believe that it's the Hindi term for what's known as the fifth element, or outer space. So that was another hint that she's playing a goddess. Now, brothers, I'm sure that I've shown this photo before. This is the Hindu version of Persephone, the goddess of the dead, or the queen of the damned. This goddess, this quote-unquote goddess, is named Kali. She's the god of death. She's also the god of time. And that, I believe, is a hint as to why vampires never die. They never age. Because in the cult of Kali, she controls time. But she does demand blood sacrifice, and she does drink blood. For those of you cats out there who remember the plot of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, it revolved around Kali, or Kali Ma, Kali the mother. She was the destroyer goddess as well, so she had great power. She was the consort of Shiva, who was the destroyer god and the god of time himself. So that's how you know that Shiva is also Hades. Another name for Hades is Pluto. Okay, and that links up with the concept of the film Us, but that's a whole other video. Point being is this: when we talk about vampires, what we're actually talking about is the understanding of the Bacchanalian mysteries, or the drinking of the blood. That's one of the reasons why Bacchus was known as the god of wine. Those of us who read the scriptures know that wine is often used as a metaphor for blood, and vice versa. Right? So that is why the vampire needs blood to survive. And as the scriptures also tell us in Leviticus, the 17th chapter, the life of the body is in the blood. Once again, pay attention to the fact that her tongue is out, and in particular, pay attention to the teeth, the vampire teeth. When you see these photos that these female artists take with their tongue out, they're trying to tell you that they are worshippers of Kali. Now here's Aaliyah as the queen of the damned, Akasha, with those same vampire teeth. And what is she prepared to do now? She's prepared to eat of the heart. Remember, the heart was the symbol of Heru. The heart is viewed as being the center of the body in the pagan mystery school system. So she has to eat the heart because it's the center of the blood. She is Kali. She is Persephone. Okay? Another term for the mother goddess is Hecate, the goddess of witchcrafts. Why is that? Because the word Heka, H-E-K-A, was the word for magic amongst the people of Kemet. So now, brothers, this is the cover photo of Aaliyah's last album before she passed. And this is another theme that I've touched on, another motif that's utilized in the recording industry, that being that they like to have a red background, which symbolizes the blood oath that they must take to become an engrafted part of that world. That's where we get the symbol of the red curtain from. The red curtain on stage is the difference between the actors in the world of the Bacchus. Remember that Bacchus is the god of the theater. He's the god of performance and of entertainment. So once you pass beyond those red curtains, now you have to perform for the masses. There's a difference between what goes on behind the curtains as opposed to what goes on in front of the curtains. Behind the curtains are the things that we don't see, right? In front of the curtains are the things that we see, the audience. Behind the curtains are where the rituals are performed that we're not meant to see or understand. Another photo of Aaliyah with the red background. Another photo of Aaliyah with the red background. Now, just to provide some context, this is the singer Sierra with that same theme. She's wearing the white shirt with the black stripes. Background is red. Why is that? Because she also is under the programming. She was sent into the industry. And I remember there was a lot of talk about her being a quote-unquote tranny when she first came out. Now, this right here is an old photo of the comedic legend Richard Pryor. But I'm just trying to provide some context for many of you brothers who might not quite grasp what I'm saying when it comes to this motif of the red background. It's meant to show that you are part of the industry. You cannot escape. Once you've seen what happens behind the curtains and you're allowed to go in front of the curtains to perform for the masses, and you're an artisan or a craftsman per se, a master builder or what have you, you cannot leave the craft. You're not allowed to leave. Once again, we see Richard Pryor dressed in all black. What is the theme? Once again, brothers, black, white, and red for the black mass, for Pan. Richard Pryor was a witch as well. Everyone was so shocked when Quincy Jones came out and said that Richard Pryor had sex with Marlon Brando and Marlon Brando has sex with Marvin Gaye and all that other stuff. I was not surprised at all. I've been telling you brothers for the longest time, that's how they get down in the industry. Bottom line. Now, many of you brothers might remember that back in the day, Sigourney Weaver played the character of the gatekeeper in the film Ghostbusters. As we can see here, she's dressed like the mother goddess, the quote-unquote Scarlet Witch, dressed in red with the left shoulder exposed. Really supposed to be the entire left breast exposed, but they can't go that far in a film that was for quote-unquote family and regular people back in 1984 or whenever the film came out. So they just showed the left shoulder. The point being is this. Sigourney Weaver was playing the mother goddess. She was playing Sibel, the quote-unquote gatekeeper. Rick Moranis was playing Janus, the keymaster. They needed to have his key go into her lock so that the true God, as they view him, Satan, can come through the portal. You understand? Because Lucifer is meant to be an intermediary between man and Satan. Christ is meant to be an intermediary between his people and the Most High. Point being is this, as we see here with Sigourney Weaver, she was playing the gatekeeper. And there was a very pivotal scene in that film that I want brothers to look at a still shot of so that we can get an understanding of what many of the females in the entertainment industry style themselves as. Now, I'm sure that you brothers remember this scene. This is a scene where Bill Murray was coming to speak to Sigourney Weaver's character, and she's literally hovering, levitating over her bed to show you that, number one, she is the master witch. She is the mother goddess archetype, and she has quote-unquote spiritual powers on the left-hand side. Why am I showing this scene? Because Aaliyah did the same thing in the We Need a Resolution video. Remember this scene, brothers? Where Aaliyah is levitating in the We Need a Resolution video. Once again, this video was supposed to be some type of sign or symbol for where her career path was going to go. She was going to go from the, the nice young girl with the kind face, and her career was going to go left. She was going to take all of her fans down that same dark path. It's basically the paradigm that's been laid out by Disney. What Disney does is they raise up many of these little girls who are meant to make people think that they're sweet and kind and all those other things, like Ariana Grande and Miley Cyrus, etc., Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera. And then they take them to a certain point, and then all of a sudden they get freaked out. You know why? Because that's a portion of their programming, their sex alter programming. They're trying to make all the young girls in this society into whores and harlots, and they do so by getting them to follow many of these false idols. But once again, as we can see here, Aaliyah's character is mimicking what occurred to Sigourney Weaver's character in Ghostbusters, where she was hovering or levitating over the bed. And it's really not copying, it's just the same concept, that through magic, they have telekinetic powers. Here goes Aaliyah still hovering, still levitating. Now, brothers, this was a still shot of Carrie Hilson in her video for Knock You Down with Kanye West. And the same thing happened to her, where she was levitating as well. The difference is that it's very obvious to me that there was something that Carrie Hilson was not willing to do when it comes to becoming an engrafted part of the recording industry, because her career pretty much came and went. By no means am I saying that she's someone with morals per se. I'm just saying that either there was not enough room for her, or she pissed off someone higher on the hierarchy. If I remember correctly, she had an issue with Beyonce around that time period where she tried to talk slick about Beyonce. Maybe that's one of the reasons why. Either way, at this point in the video for Knock You Down, she was quote-unquote levitating and showing that she also had the witchcraft powers. All the top females in the entertainment industry are witches. So peace.